Hello, everyone. This is the Historic District Commission Town of Fairfield meeting. Today is January 30th, 2025, and it is 12:30 p.m. Notice of this special hearing was posted on the HTC website. Let's take attendance. George,
I am here.
Jim,
Yes, good to see you.
and I'm Rosina Negron. Absent today are Darren Raymond Locke, Art Gravanis, Jing Akamondo, and Mauro Garage. Presenting today, we have Michael Howard, and it is for a property located at 2736 Bronson Road, Fairfield, Connecticut, 06824. We actually have Jim Akamondo that has joined the meeting. So let's go ahead and start. Michael, do you have your presentation ready, and do you want to share it?
I do, but if I can, I'd like to set the stage a bit. I've got some photographs, but I'd like to save those for if I can,
Yep.
and just make some comments. Let me start by thanking the Commission and Rosina in particular for inviting me to informally discuss both the application and the project that it's a part of. Sorry?
No.
Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Yes, we can.
Loud and
Okay,
clear.
good. Okay. I'm concerned about everybody's time, so I can be as brief as possible, but is it okay to at least provide some context to the application and the project? Great. Okay. There a handful of us, maybe 15 or 16 people, never that many on any Wednesday or Friday mornings, 6:30 to 8:30 or 9, who have been involved in restoring the Greenfield Hill Cemetery up on Bronson Road. The project started in 2016 by a guy named Jeff Taylor, who then was living on Meeting House Lane, which is right behind Greenfield Hill Congregational Church. He has since moved to Rhode Island, but back in 2016, he was living in a house that had originally been built and briefly lived in by a guy named Abraham Baldwin, who turns out was a pretty important guy. Born in 1754 in Guilford, Connecticut, Yale graduate, considered divinity school but didn't go, but ended up being chaplain of the Continental Army, and as such became part of George Washington's inner circle. He was, after living, I think he lived in Fairfield for about a year and a half or so. He was enticed down to Georgia by another Yale graduate, got heavily into educational reform, which ended up with the establishment of the University of Georgia, for which he was the first president. He served on the House of Representatives and the Senate of Georgia. He was sent to the Continental Congress of 1787. He ended up being a signer of the Constitution and was credited with being instrumental in what became known as the Great Compromise, or locally known as the Great Connecticut Compromise. Seriously, because he was concerned, he was on a committee. It was when they were deciding on a single house or a double house in Congress. And both the Virginia plan and the New Jersey plan, Virginia plan had two houses, the New Jersey plan had one house, but both were based on the population of the states. And Abraham, on behalf of Connecticut and all of the smaller states, was very concerned about that. He ended up being a tie vote on the committee that had been put together to come up with a solution. So it was a 5-5 tie, and there was a smaller committee that then came back, and he was instrumental in being a part of that. With the Senate being 2 per state, and the House, the lower house being the House of Representatives, being based on population. Jeff got fascinated with Abraham's history. Abraham is buried in Rock Creek Cemetery down in Washington, but there was a memorial stone in the Greenfield Hill Cemetery. So Jeff goes down in search of it. And you can imagine, because it's been hard for some of us who have now worked in it for about the last 9 or 10 years, there was obviously grass and shrub up to his knees. Most of the stones were broken and on the ground. Jeff found the stone in honor of Abraham Baldwin, but then looked around. It's a 1,000-stone cemetery. Looked around and thought, wouldn't it be an interesting project, get the community involved and so forth, to restore it? Now, I don't know how many of us would have ever thought that, and I'm not sure he completely knew what he was getting into. There had been prior attempts about every 30 or 40 years to go and cut the grass and stuff like that, but nobody had thought to actually restore all of the stones and so forth. It's owned by the town. So he approached Dan Caruso, who was the judge. Dan was impressed with his enthusiasm, but said, go get trained. I can't just give you responsibility for the cemetery. He ended up 2.5 days of training with a guy named Jonathan Appel, who is noted in the Northeast for restoration training and so forth. He repaired about 12 stones, and Dad said, the cemetery is yours. But understand that it comes with a great deal of responsibility for its care and preservation and so forth. That started, Jeff was on his own in 2016. A couple of guys joined him in 2017. I joined in 2018, and through up until last November, we basically would work, weather permitting, 2 days a week, 2 mornings a week. There were a total of maybe 15 or 16 of us that have been involved. On any day, it was probably 4 to 6. Back-breaking work, because most every stone needed to be repaired, put back in the ground, leveled, put in line, and so forth. At this point, all of the stones, including footstones, are up, and most have been cleaned, and they're in a line and so forth. There are 4 things that remain. Jeff is relocated to Rhode Island last July, so there are a handful of us still very much involved. It was originally intended to tie to the 300th anniversary of the Congregational Church, which is this year. There's no formal tie other than in name only, and the fact that the bulk of us who have been working are members of the Congregational Church. But as I said before, it's owned by the town. Its reputation, interestingly enough, is having more individual Revolutionary War interments than any place in the country.
Oh,
No, it's a big deal, actually. There are, when we get to the photos, the second one will look at the entryway, and just to the right of the entryway is a brass plaque. That has 93 names on it. We've counted about 10 more. So I think, for the record, there supposedly 103 Revolutionary War dead, 3 from the French and Indian War,
Oh,
25 from the War of 1812 to 14, and 6 from the Civil War. And those internments have been cared for by the Daughters of the American Revolution over the years, in terms of flags and, and so forth.
The thing about
So,
it's always changing. Whether advancements in AI, workplace policies, IND initiatives, upskilling talent,
is that at my end?
we all have to work.
Can we all mute except the person that's speaking at the time, please?
Okay.
unmuted.
Simply fall into place. And
Uh,
it's achieving your business goals.
Let me just, I didn't think I had anything. Okay. One of the interesting asides about the Revolutionary War dead is there is let me see if that's at my end. I didn't think it was, but hold on. I can't find it. A lady named Laura Lugo, who is from Queens, and had, but she moved to Fairfield about 8 years ago, and she became aware of the project. She spent the last 7 years researching the 93 Revolutionary War dead, and her book, which is thick, came out. It's now available on Amazon about 2.5, 3 months ago. It's fascinating because of all of the research available online. She was able to do it, but it was a 7-year project. One of the things that we would like to do is tie into that. Anyway, at this point, all of the stone construction, footstones and headstones and so forth, is basically complete. There are 4 things that are still on the list of those who haven't moved to Rhode Island that we would like to complete before considering our work done. One is revising the legend, the map, if you will. We used a map that dates back to the 1950s, which was surprisingly accurate. But in the course of our restoration work, we found some members who should have been with the family and weren't. And so we made some moves like that. But it's going to be updated and so forth. We would like to, number 2, we'd like to be able to capture for the Revolutionary War dead a QR code, like you're standing in front of a home with a Ravis app and you pull up all of the information. We'd like to do that at least for the Revolutionary War dead. There is number 3. There are about 12 individual family plots that in each case are bordered with stone pillars and wrought iron bars, most of which are bent or broken or whatever. I suspect we'll never get to that because we have reached out to a welding company in Bridgeport and they've taken a look at it, and we suspect that it may be $100,000 or more to actually do that work. The last thing on our list, and it actually goes to the top of the list, is repairing the entryway in terms of both the roof and the rot and so forth. And none of us feel that we can claim victory and sort of conclude our restoration effort if that isn't done. So the others are nice to have. The one that we feel is critical is to repair the entryway. Hence, the application and the context of the project that a handful of us have been involved in. We can go to the. Let me see if I don't want to lose you. Let me see if I can pull this up quickly. Which are the
If you go to the bottom of, allow you to share.
Fine. Oh, okay. I got it. Maybe that's the way to do it. What do you want to share? If I've got, okay, I didn't put them into this. Is is there a way? I've loaded 5 pictures onto my computer. Is there a way that I can easily?
You should be able to share your desktop.
That's what I thought. Hold on one second. Let me.
Will you like me to share the pictures
Can you?
that you had
That
sent?
that would be terrific. I'm not finding it. If you can, and I really just wanted, I wanted to do the site plan, which is hardly descriptive, but it was signed off on by the
Okay.
town. They signed the original application that we did a couple of years ago, and he just signed that. And then I was just going to show the picture of the entryway. I mean the cemetery from Bronson, and then there's a. Let me see. I should be able to get this. Darn it. And it was just 2 pictures of the roof and the entryway. They're not much, but it basically
Okay.
shows the.
Give me 1 second. And I'll try to share them.
Okay, thanks.
I'm gonna have to give you a class. Enrico.
Oh, maybe I do. Oh, no, no, no. Hold on. Let me see if I have it. Hold on.
Okay.
Did that? Okay. Did that pop up?
No.
It's just on mine. Let me see if I can go to the sharing. I at least now know where it is. Let me see if I can. Can I, under the share app, optimize for? How do I? Oh, hold on. I'm sorry. I
That's
don't know
okay.
how to. I don't know
Let,
how to get. I mean, I can see them on my computer. I
let
just
me
don't know
try.
how to tie them in.
I'm going to share the first one.
Okay.
And
Great. Okay. That's, as I said, that's the site plan, and it was signed down here on January 13th. I said, "Do you want to give me a new one?" He said, "Nope, I'll just sign this one." He said, "Has anything changed?" I said, "No, not at all." So
okay.
that's the site plan in terms of where it is. If you can pull up, then it's a view from Bronson Road. There's not much of Bronson Road, but it'll give. Perfect. Okay. Am I? It's simply that's the entryway, and if you can look just to the right, right there, if you can see my cursor, that's uh, the bronze plaque with the names of the 93 Revolutionary War dead that who at the time were were interred there. The next one should be the entryway itself.
Can you see it?
Not yet. There it is. Okay. Yeah, it gives you a. It shows where we're not. We're proposing that the roof be done with a professional roofer. There is some rot that I submitted a separate work order on earlier this week, which we need to address and so forth. The structure is basically sound, but it needs some TLC and a new roof. And you start to see the cemetery work behind. I will say, just while we're going to the next slide, a comment about the town of Fairfield. Two comments. One, the town itself has been enormously helpful almost since day one. So there's the north side of the roof. And if there's a way to get a little, I can't seem to enhance it. You'll see the deterioration and the fact, there we are, and the fact that there, perfect. It gives you a sense. Let me just make a comment about the terracotta. We're not quite sure why it was ever used in the first place, whether there was a supply of it available. We can't find. There's one house in the community that we don't think is in the historic district. It's at the corner of Hillside and Greenfield Hill Road, right where the roads split. That's got a tile roof. That's the only one that we can find anywhere in the area. And it's difficult to source. It's heavy. It's costly. It falls into that premium roofing sort of category along with slate. Slate, just for any that remember the original application, slate was then recommended primarily because the Lady Dreyfus, whose estate, when we're at the cemetery looking east, we look on her estate. It was a project that took about 3 years. There are 5 separate buildings on the estate. They all used slate for their roofs. And we thought that they may have some leftover slate that they would have, I think, happily contributed to the project. They've been very supportive as well. Turns out they didn't have any. But this is what's there now. If we can go to the next page, the next photo. And what I was going to say about the town is they have been hugely supportive since day one with loam, with gravel, and cement. And we have gone through a ton of all three. And it was interesting. Somebody asked me the other day whether Bill Gerber was aware of what we were doing. Turns out he is. He visited us totally unannounced last September. He just sort of showed up, and we weren't quite sure why until he said, "So where are the 3 stones that you have just unearthed?" And apparently somebody in his office had heard through the grapevine that as we were looking for footstones on the back end, on the very sloped part of the graveyard that looks directly west to the Dreyfus estate, we thought it was just a footstone. And the guys kept digging, And it turned out there were 3 brand new stones that they weren't new, they were new to us, that we didn't know existed. One of them was actually buried totally vertically, so you can imagine how deep it was. It also, 2 of them had bases. It took us about 3 weeks to dig them out, put them in place. We had work to do on the bases because they didn't fit until we did some work and so forth. And Bill had heard about them. So he came and he admired the 3 new stones and so forth. We haven't seen them since, but generally the town has been really, really supportive. Upon request, we would call in, and within days, a new supply of cement or gravel or whatever would be delivered. I think I don't know if you want to, I had 2 pictures in the application I filed originally to include the evident rot, but that's part of a repair order, so it may not be relevant for this conversation.
Correct. We need to just focus on the roof at the moment.
Yep. In terms of roofing product, my understanding is that at the cheapest end is asphalt shingle. We frankly think that this deserves something more than just the cheapest product available. And we are not inclined to go with either, well, the slate you've turned down, but I mean, slate and terracotta and so forth they're expensive, they're heavy and so forth. What we are recommending is pressure treated redwood, not red cedar. Both cedar and redwood are softwoods, but the redwood is pressure treated, is harder. It's readily available. Its longevity, if properly installed, and by that I mean if there's sufficient ventilation, you ought to be able to see underneath and see the shingle itself, so that it gets sufficient air to dry out and so forth. And I'm told that if pressure treated and so forth, its longevity is 25 to 30 years. It's got a deeper red-brown color than cedar. And that's what we're recommending. And I would say 2 other things, and I'll just open it up to any questions. One is, we don't expect, if we're able to get approval, we don't expect this to be aggressively bid for. It's a small project. It's 200 square feet at most. We don't think anybody's going to make much money in doing it. We suspect that we're going to be asking somebody to do us a favor by putting it up, and for whatever reason, friendship or etc. And the other thing, from a cost standpoint, we are estimating, I don't know, $7,000 to $8,000 to $9,000. I don't want to speak out of turn, but I learned yesterday that the Greenfield Hill Improvement Society may be willing to provide some help financially. And it would also be our intent to perhaps ask the town if they may help as well. They've been so helpful with all of the material that was needed. I think that we may have the funding in place, and again, with the requisite approval, would hope to get it done as soon as spring is here and the weather is conducive for putting in a roof and so forth. With that, I open it up to questions, if anybody has any. Or
George, do you have any questions or comments?
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you, Michael.
Thanks, George.
Jim Accomando, do you have any questions or comments?
No, and thanks for the story. A friend of mine
Yes, sir.
actually has the book on the Greenfield Hill Cemetery, and I was fascinated by it, and will be purchasing it myself from the church. So
Oh, got it. Okay.
great story. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Jim Bohan, do you have any questions or comments? You're muted.
Good.
You're muted. You're muted.
You're muted.
Mr. Howard, a wonderful story, very well told. I thank you very much.
Thank
Enjoyed
you. Thanks for listening.
it. Yeah, oh my God. On the contrary. No,
Come on down, by the way. We're there every Wednesday and Friday.
how have you thought of what's going to be the pattern of the redwood on the roof? Laterally or longitudinally?
I haven't. The guy I'm working with may have, but I don't have a. When I read about it, I gather that I don't want to say too much about this, but you can get it where it's sort of not free, KNOT, not free, and with very little pattern, but guide me if you're more familiar than I with what we should be looking for or hope for in that
No,
regard.
I'm not aware. Maybe other commissioners are aware. I'm aware of no historic precedents or even traditional precedents for of redwood roof. And I'm not sure what precedents we'd be looking for, if any.
If I'm back in March to formally present, I will have a much better answer for whatever pattern or is appropriate or we will end up with. I just don't know at this point.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
No other questions.
I do have a couple of comments.
Yes.
My main concern is the material and the material
Okay.
substitution. By you saying that this is one of the few, if not the only, terracotta roof in the area, my concern is removing it and not having the original material existing anymore. So that is my biggest concern with a different type of roof. And I believe that was also the concern that we had back when you guys originally presented with the slate roof. I know there are terracotta tiles available in the market, and there might be options of perhaps getting a grant or different ways to be able to preserve the original material that that entryway has. If you want, I can share with you one that I was able to find. It's not for you to go this way, but it's just an option that perhaps you guys have not looked into.
That'd be fine. Let me ask you a question. To the extent that we can't find any other roof that used terracotta, is it simply preserving the original decision, or okay?
The original
I mean,
material.
the original, yeah, the original material. It's not because pressure treated redwood would be uncommon or inappropriate. You're just saying at this point, we think you should stick to the original material.
And that's just my opinion. There's other
No, fair enough. Fair enough.
applicants, but yeah. But I'm gonna share with you one
Okay.
item that I was able to find.
Okay.
Let me see.
You can mail it to me if you can't find it. That'd be fine.
Yes.
Oh,
So it's basically a company in Texas,
wow.
and they have a wide variety of shingle tiles in terracotta that seem to be fairly similar to what it's existing there. You might have to order samples to see if, for example, the Kalai, which is this one, or the cottage, or the flat slab, or the provincial might be some of the options that you can look into. But my opinion is that changing the material might be a little bit too much. And if you stick with the same terracotta material, you might only be able to do a repair rather than a certificate of appropriateness.
Let me ask you this. I think we think at this point that it's not a repair job. It's tricky enough to work with and so forth. We think that we would have to do the whole thing. In your considerations for something like this, small project and so forth, do costs factor in to any way? I mean, the cost of you're talking about a firm that's in Texas. You're talking about heavy material. I mean, I have no idea what the cost is, but we don't. What budget we have had has basically been provided by Jeff Taylor, and it's been fairly hefty so far. Does that enter into the consideration at all, or not really, as far as you're concerned?
Usually, the commission doesn't get involved in the cost.
Right. Okay. How should I proceed for the March meeting? Because I know there's going to be a reluctance on our part unless, how should I proceed? I mean, the application now reads, recommends pressure treated redwood.
Mm-hmm.
How should I proceed?
You have the option to come back to the commission and present as you have proposed. And if enough commissioners are okay with it, then that is what stands. But my recommendation is that it's a drastic change. So
okay. I mean, okay. Okay. No. I mean, I'm thinking it's a roof that most people never even. Okay. No. I shouldn't know that. I mean, we only noticed it because, there were pieces that were falling down. I don't think anybody, and we've been working there for 9 years. And until somebody said, we've got to do something with the entryway. And by the way, the roof is falling down. We have pieces of it. It never even occurred to us to either look up or recognize that it was terracotta.
May I ask two questions? One, any idea when that terracotta was put up there? How old is that roof?
I have no idea. We don't. Yeah.
Number two, you're talking about 200 square feet.
Yeah.
Is there a possibility the uniqueness of this site and this cemetery, the way you describe it, is there any possibility that 200 square feet is not that big?
Correct.
Is there any possibility that tile manufacturer might feel inclined to support, philanthropically, support the restoration of that roof?
I suppose it's possible, but if I'm reaching out, it strikes me that it would be more possible if there was somebody in the Northeast who could appreciate. A firm in Texas may say, thanks for sharing that, but here's the cost. And by the way, the transportation is going to be as much as the tile. I mean, I don't know. I suspect they wouldn't view it that way unless they were sort of closer to the Northeast and had an appreciation for, you know, cemeteries and.
It's a
I
manufacturing
mean, we can
facility.
certainly ask.
It is a manufacturer. And
Yeah.
for example, any project across the US that
Yeah.
might need terracotta, they're not going to find it here. They will have to source it from other places.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it
yeah.
is normal part of the materials. Same thing with the redwood shingles.
Yeah, yeah.
You
Fair
will not
enough.
find it here. You will have to buy it from a manufacturer that's definitely not in Fairfield.
Right.
Are,
Okay. I mean, I'm not.
are there going to be redwood shingles or redwood boards?
Shingles.
Oh,
Shingles. Yeah,
Okay.
not planks, not, yeah. They'd be redwood shingles. Pressure treated, but yeah.
okay. Okay, that eliminates the question of the design of the roof.
That's what I was thinking, but I didn't. Okay, yeah, no, they'd be shingles. Can I, on a decision like this, is it a majority of the commissioners, or I'm just
Yes.
the process? Okay. We will certainly explore and whatever, whether it's this manufacturer or any other. We will certainly go that, look into that more than I suspect we have. And can I reach out to you before the March meeting just with, okay,
Yes.
fine. Okay. All right. Perfect. Will do.
Okay. Anyone
That's
has
all
any
right.
other questions or comments? Hearing none, thank you for the.
Thanks for your time. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Any motion to adjourn?
Yes.
George and Jim Bohan. Thank you. Have a good one.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Good seeing you, George.